Hey, welcome. So in this video, we'll be covering the famous Spring inversion of control and dependency injection. We'll be coding and running application. Let's see in the slide what are the things we'll be covering in this video and the part 2 in this series. Before that, just to recall, remember in our previous video, we downloaded basic project structure of our first project, which we named as our first project. We selected Maven project. The Spring Boot version was 2.4.3 and the group was com.gocoders. Artifact was our first project. Package name com.gocoders. Our first project. The packaging was a jar file and we selected Java 15 as our desired version of Java. We added a Spring dependency, as you can see over here, which is Spring Web. So let's head over to the slide now. So in our previous video, Spring and Spring Boot version and Spring Initializer tutorial, we downloaded the starter Spring Boot project named our first project file from Spring Initializer, which was start.spring.io. Now this file was a zip file. Now we need to unzip and then import it into our IDE, which is Spring Tool Suite. Next, after the import, we'll take a quick look at the project structure and the related project artifacts. By artifacts, I mean the files and the folders. We'll also be running the basic skeletal application created by Spring Boot. Next, we'll expand the above application by adding more classes and interface, and in the process, implement dependency injection in its various flavors in both part 1 and part 2 of this video. Now, after going through the application, we'll take a look at some of the important definitions such as inversion of control, dependency injection, and Spring Bean. Now, to mention that these definitions will be covered in part 2 of the video. We'll continue to discuss and work on Spring dependency injection in subsequent videos. Now we'll head over to Windows Explorer, the Windows file management system, to have a look at our unzipped folder, our first project. So here at the top you can see we are in our first project folder and we have unzipped this folder from the file we downloaded, which was our first project.zip. Now here you can see the folders .mbn, src, and the other files like .git, ignore, etc. Now let's head over to Spring Tool Suite and we'll be importing our first project within the IDE. So here we are in the IDE Spring Tool Suite and we'll go to File and then click on Import. And here we need to go to this node, which is Maven, then select existing Maven projects, then click on Next. And then we need to browse to the directory where our first project folder is existing. So let's click on Browse. And here is our first project, Let's select it and click on Select Folder down below. And you can see the pom.xml under the projects is already selected. If it is not, you should select it and then simply click on Finish button. And here right at the bottom, you can see importing Maven projects. It's 9% right now. It's taking a bit of time and we should have our project ready very soon. And we are done importing our first project. We are in the Package Explorer. So we have the src/main Java, and this is our first project application. Let me open it in the code editor. So here we have our first project application. Let me just zoom in. So before discussing the code itself, let me go ahead and explain the artifacts, the files and folders. So on the left in the Package Explorer, you can see src main resources, and here you can keep all the static components of your application. Right now we don't have them, so we have only the application properties, which is empty right now. And then we have the src test Java, where we have our JUnit application for running JUnit tests. Let's have a look at it. So this is a very skeletal bare bones JUnit application. We don't need it right now. We'll be covering JUnit and unit testing in later videos. So let's collapse all these nodes, and here you can see you have the JRE system library which are required for running the application. Then you have the Maven dependencies. So here if you scroll down, you can see we have the JUnit Jupyter 5.7.1, and if you scroll down further below, you can see there are certain jars over here, the log4j which is used for logging. Let's scroll down further, and here you can see we have the Spring Boot 2.4.3 jar file. And we have the Spring core jars, which first you can see Spring AOP, Spring Beans, and then let's scroll down further. You can see we have the Spring Web 5.3.4 and Spring Web MVC, and of course the Spring Core and the Spring Context. Further down you have the Tomcat embedded jars, and remember Spring Tool Suite comes with an embedded Tomcat, and that's the advantage because you don't need to download and install separately Tomcat and then configure it within your IDE. So that's one of the advantages of using Spring Boot. So let's collapse this node, and further you can see we have the help.md where you can get certain helpful instructions such as the reference, documentation and guides, etc. Then we have the mvnw on the left. You can see mvnw.cmd, which are actually used by Maven to run the application. Let's have a quick look at them. So we'll use the mvnw. So mvnw is for Mac and Linux, and mvnw.cmd is for Windows. So here you can see after the license instructions, there is a whole lot of code that is used by Maven to run the application in the background. And then finally you have the pom.xml. Let's click on it, and here you can see the pom.xml file. Let me just expand this, and here you can see we are using version 2.4.3 of Spring Boot. And if you scroll down further below, you can see the dependencies, Spring Boot Starter Web and Spring Boot Starter Test. We'll be covering a lot about dependencies and Maven in general in later videos. But to mention briefly, you can see a further detailed POM, which is the effective POM. If you click on it, it's loading. And here you'll see the actually gory details of all the dependencies that Maven is pulling for running these applications. So let's have a quick look at this. So you can see there are a huge number of jars and a lot of dependencies that are being pulled by Maven within our IDE. We'll have a more detailed look later on, and there is a tab Dependency Hierarchy, from which you can find the hierarchy of the dependencies. And in the Dependencies tab, you can search for dependencies. We'll take a look at all these things when we discuss Maven in further detail in later videos. Now, I would like to draw your attention to one thing, is that you might be wondering where are all the jar files located which are being pulled down by Maven. So here you can see under C users HPPC, under the .m2 directory over here, if I click on this, you can see this is the repository created by Maven. Let's click on this again, and here you can see all the jar files located here. Let's select one of these. So let's select this org, and if I expand this one, let's click on Apache, or rather let's choose Spring Framework, and if you go into further, let's choose Spring Context. And here you can see the versions 5.3.3 and 5.3.4 are located. So let's click on this folder, and here you can see the jar file, which is Spring Context. This is the source file, and this is the actual jar file, which is Spring Context 5.3.4.jar. We'll take a further detailed look later when you explain Maven in later video. So here we are back in our STS IDE or Spring Tool Suite, and we'll simply run the application as it is. So we'll go at the top, click on Run, and then click on Run As. And here you can see you can run both as a Java application or as a Spring Boot app. Now there are certain subtle differences between the two, which we'll discuss in later videos. For now, we can run it as a Spring Boot app, and let's see what happens. So the application is running, and here you would be able to see that Spring Boot is loading. Spring Boot has loaded, and it is loading the Tomcat as well. Let's expand this one so that you can see it better. So here you can see Spring Boot has loaded, which is 2.4.3, and here you can see that Tomcat server has loaded too on port 8080, and our application has started, which is our first project application in 7.4 seconds. So let's minimize the console once again, and nothing really happens over here since this is a skeletal application. I just wanted to show you what happens when you run the application loading of Spring Boot and the embedded Tomcat server. Now if you want to run once again after you make changes to the code, remember to click on this red button so that the Tomcat server stops. Now you might be wondering that this is not a web application as such, and still Tomcat is being loaded. Why? The reason is we added a Spring Web dependency, and that's why Spring Boot automatically senses it, and hence it forces the embedded Tomcat server to run. Now there is a way out. If you're not running a web application and you don't want Tomcat server to start up, then you need to just add a property within the application.properties. Let's see how it happens. Let's stop the server for now, clicking on this red button. So the server is stopping and the process has terminated. So let's clear the console over here, and we'll go to applications or properties, and I'll just paste a snippet of code for the key value pair, which is spring.main.web dash application dash type equal to none. So you just don't want Tomcat server to start up when you run the application, since we are not using a web application. So let's save it and we'll rerun the application. So let's go run once again, and you can click on run as a Spring Boot application. And here our Spring Boot app once again loads. So here again the Spring Boot app loads. Let's expand this console, and here you can see that our first project application has started, but Tomcat didn't load since you instructed Spring Boot not to load up Tomcat by adding the property in application.properties. So we'll stop here. In our next video, we'll be explaining the code, the basic skeletal application. You see over here the annotations such as Spring Boot application, the class such as Spring application. We'll be also adding furthermore code over here, including additional classes and interfaces to build up our first simple dependency injection application. So hope you enjoyed this video. If you're liking the videos from GoKoders channel, please like and share this video, as well as subscribe to this channel so that you get notified whenever I publish a new video.